I know like personalization has just been talked about a lot in this last year because generative AI makes it sort of cheap to create content, and then it does provide more personalized experiences. So, can you maybe talk a bit about how generative AI is changing things in terms of customer experience?
Yeah. So there's a couple pieces to this for me. One is I do think there's an enormous step that can be taken because we've long had the conversation with our customers, for example, about how, well, can I make a segment of one? I want to be able to do one-to-one marketing. And I'm like, you can do whatever you want. Do you have copy and content and visuals to support that kind of one-to-one marketing? And of course the answer is always no. However, generative AI may be something that allows us to take that massive leap forward as far as creating those one-to-one or certainly one to fewer um, engagements and personalization that we haven't seen before. So I do think that will be a big piece of this. Another aspect of it, and again, similar to what I just said about the incremental 1% better type of transformation, I feel the same about generative AI in the sense that it's going to help automate the routine, the rote, the stuff that just takes a lot of time. Companies that harness it for the less sexy, repetitive activities and free up your brilliant marketers and digital teams to be creative and to think new big thoughts and to try new things that only they can try. Those are going to be the folks that win versus the ones who maybe come out really hot out of the gate with some cool generative AI kind of concept, but it's not being built into how their organization operates. And I think that's true again for the people as well as for kind of the content side of the house, that figuring out the right way to bake this in with intention and being deliberate is going to pay off much more likely in a couple of years, in a big way versus ones who kind of claim to have it figured out right now, but probably I would expect flame out because it's not embedded, it's not structural, and this type of technology has the potential to make those kind of big changes, but it's got to be treated in a structural way, in my view.
Absolutely, that does sound important. And um, I suppose related to this idea is we ought to talk about customer segmentation because that seems like that's the in between step from we're doing everything just for everything the same for all of our customers to we're having everything personalized.
Yeah.
And so, do you maybe have any thoughts on where that fits in?
I mean, look, I think you're exactly right. Segmentation is to me kind of where all of the magic happens. It's where all the ingredients that the data is come together and create something unique and special. It's long been, I think, the part that is most fascinating to me about the work that we do is how our customers think about their own consumer segmentation and what's important to them and how that varies by industry and by organization on all of that. I think a thoughtful segmentation strategy is really where the rubber meets the road, right? It's the intersection of the data and the activation, exactly as you say. And so that can both also have an AI impact in automating some of that testing and being able to hold out test groups, things of that nature, but also figuring out how can we start to do more complex testing of different segment combinations with different content combinations, right? Much more true kind of multivariate testing at a scale that we maybe haven't seen before. But really, it all comes down to who are these cohorts that we're interacting with? At what altitude are we considering our consumers? I think one of the discussions we often have is the difference between kind of a segmentation analysis, which might be very familiar to folks working in media and advertising, but those are essentially personas versus actual dynamic segments that people are moving in and out of. We interact with these people in a particular way. And then same thing true more for cohorts, which is more of an analytical way of thinking about the groupings. So in marketing and advertising and data, I feel like we have all these different kind of ways of thinking about groups of consumers. So getting that ontology right and what we're actually discussing in our world, it is more about the activation and kind of creating a dynamic type of segment. But everything else still has a huge purpose. They should all be kind of philosophically connected. But in our world, it is about how do we take this group of people and make sure we're interacting with them in the right intelligent way. And without that, you end up with the noise of all the data and the aspiration of all the activation, but without the segmentation in the middle, you can't bring those things together in the right ways.